Hi and welcome to Raw Chatter. It is your host speaking, Vicky Midwood, and do bear with me. I am fighting off a cold, so I'm a little bit nasally today. But let's crack on with today's topic. I want to just bust some myths around food, nutrition, and exercise, because most of the clients that I work with who are struggling with body image issues, bulimia, dependence on alcohol, just anxiety about how they look, or more importantly, how they think other people think they look, they all tend to come up with the same ideas, the same beliefs, and actually myths around food and exercise and just what they associate with their body size, shape, weight, etc. So I just want to bust some of these myths because, believe it or not, I have been in the world of wellness for 32 years, and these myths were around when I was struggling. And I am 54 now. I started struggling with issues around my weight and my appearance and comparing myself to other people, really from the age of 10. So that's a long time that these myths have been around. And I have seen the changes in science and in the knowledge that we have about how the body works, the gut-brain connection, all of the different microbiomes that exist in our bodies, the massively powerful role of vagus tone, and just how the vagus nerve affects how we feel and how we think and how you respond to things. Understanding that a highly sensitive personality is actually a thing. Whereas when I first started on my journey to wellness, it was poo-pooed as being ridiculous. And a kind of emergence, if you like, of understanding of just all of the different neurodivergent issues that people can struggle with, that mean that many of them are affected by certain foods and intolerances and inflammation and behaviors that we didn't understand before. And yet, these old myths are still as powerful as ever. And who do we have to thank for those? Well, big food. Food industry in the UK, in the West, particularly in America, it's massive, and it's getting to be just as big here. And what people perhaps don't understand is that all of these food stores are out to make a profit. They want your money. And yes, there may be a lot of food products that are purporting to be healthful and may help you in your quest to look slimmer. But ultimately, the marketing is clever, and a lot of what they are saying is only half a story. I'm not saying it's a lie, but it's not the whole truth either. It's also perpetuated by the slimming industry, which is absolutely huge. So they want to keep these myths going. And also it's perpetuated by the pharmacological industry, because ultimately, if we can sell you pills and potions and get you on medication, rather than you actually taking responsibility for your own health and understanding that because you're buying into these beliefs around exercise, around gaining weight, losing weight, changing shape, and just what that means in terms of health, they want you to keep on believing them. So they are going to keep on perpetuating them. And I am only a single voice among many single voices who are all saying the same stuff. But the world at large, the masses, if you like, are just not hearing this, because these big boys, big pharma, big food, and the slimming industry are bigger than us. They are way more powerful. So my goal is to help you as an individual to have that ripple effect, because if we can drop a pebble in a pond and it causes a ripple, then hopefully it will go out, and maybe you can share this with some of your friends or your family who are still falling for these untrue beliefs / myths around food, what's healthy, what's not, what helps weight loss, what doesn't, what puts weight on and what doesn't. So let's start with a classic. So I work with a lot of people who have anorexia and bulimia. Usually one morphs into the other, and that's when they come to me, because not always, but a lot of the time the restrictive pattern of an anorexic can just get too much, and they can then kind of tip over into bulimia. And that was my story. It's not everybody's story, but what does tend to stay the same is the beliefs that they have around fat. That fat is bad and fat is to be avoided at all costs. And I want to bust that myth once and for all. Every single cell in your body has an outer casing, and that outer casing is made from fat. So if we want to have new cells, and if we want to repair and make sure that our brain is functioning well, that our nervous system is functioning well, that our digestive system, and crucially, the hormonal system is working well, we have to have fat to function. It's vital. Now, fat actually helps your body to burn fat, because it is part of the endocrine system, and it helps with nerve function, because it is also a key component of your hormones. It is absolutely vital that we have fat if we want to burn body fat, because we want the messengers, which that's what hormones are, messengers, to get the right information so that the right processes can actually happen. And we need fat to do that. Now, where people get confused is, well, what's a good fat and what's a bad fat? And if you've listened to anything that I've done before, if you've read any of my blogs or listened to any of my lives or done any of my programs, you'll have heard me say loads of times that I hate this definitive black and white. It's good, it's bad, it's wrong, it's right. It's not helpful, and it's usually not true. What we need to recognize is that the body prefers certain types of fat because it can utilize them much more easily. And the types of fat that it prefers are the types that are provided by nature naturally, because we are part of the universe, and nature and everything in it is there to help us to thrive and to survive. So it makes sense that what's available naturally out there, that's growing on trees, that's growing on bushes or in the ground, right, is natural. And so when we're talking natural fats, we're talking about the fats that come from things like foods such as olives, that come from things like avocados and nuts and seeds and coconuts. So these are the good fats that are naturally occurring in fruits and nuts and seeds that your body can utilize, along with the naturally occurring fats that are available in animal foods. Now, I know that vegetarianism and veganism is something that has kind of exploded recently. And one of the things that we need to recognize is that not everybody is going to thrive on a vegan diet. Just as not everybody is going to thrive on an all-meat diet, and not everybody is going to thrive on a vegetarian diet. But what we do know is that if we can go more plant-based and have less animal products, then we're going to be doing the planet a favor, and we're going to be doing our health a favor. But nature has provided the fat that it can use in animal flesh. And that means things like fish and poultry and red meat and white meat. These things have naturally occurring fat, and this is the fat that we can eat and that we do need to be eating, not in large amounts, in small amounts, because your body can utilize them. Fats are also vitally important for your body to be able to assimilate certain vitamins, because they are only accessible to us if we have got fat around. And those are the vitamins that are your A, your D, your E, and your K. Now, if you're taking any supplementation like a vitamin D3, then it needs to be with K, because vitamins work together to help each other to actually work as they should. But fat is required. And so if you are somebody who is avoiding fat at all costs, then the chances are that not only you're making it harder for your body to drop fat, but also you're making it harder for your hormone production, for your neurotransmitters, so the messages to get from neurons to your brain and everywhere else, to work properly. And that means that you're not going to be as energetic, as lively, as happy, perhaps, and as healthy as you would like to be. And you potentially are going to find that you're putting on fat rather than losing it, especially if you're going low fat, because low fat foods, contrary to popular belief, are not a good alternative. Food tastes rubbish when it's had its fat removed. What they tend to do in low fat foods, and I'm talking about low fat foods that are not natural low fat foods. I'm talking about low fat foods that have had the fat removed from them, that were originally higher in fat until they had some of it removed. And what that means is that they don't taste great. The texture isn't great. So the food manufacturers put in things like sugars and sweeteners and flavorings and colorings and all sorts of things to add texture and to put some flavor back in to the product that they've removed it from, which tasted fine, just naturally. So we're getting a lot of shit in these products that the body doesn't recognize, that it takes a lot of breaking down, that gives the liver a lot of work to do, and these are not actually helpful. So yes, it might be lower in overall energy. Energy is calories. But in terms of nutrients and what's happening as far as your body's response to it, not helpful, because a lot of these things can cause inflammation. And when inflammation is in, fat burning is out. And that's one of my sayings that you may or may not have heard me say. But when the two ins are in, that's insulin and inflammation, your body's not going to drop fat. Its main process is, if there's too much insulin coming in, it's going to shunt glucose into your fat cells. It's going to store fat. And if there's inflammation, your body's first and foremost activity is to try and decrease that inflammation, which again means that fat burning is not what it's going to be doing. So low-fat foods, rather than helping your body to let go of fat, are actually just making it harder. They're making your organs have to work harder, and they don't taste as good. You end up usually eating more of them because you tell yourself, well, it's only X calories, so I can have 4 instead of 2, when actually you're not really enjoying them. They don't taste as good. You'd have been better off with 1 or 2 of the normal fat content product and enjoying it and feeling satisfied than eating double or even triple the low calorie, low fat version, because we're telling ourselves that we can, because it doesn't count as much. It's incorrect, and it's a myth. So that's the first one that I wanted to bust. Fat does not make you fat. The fats that we want to be avoiding, though, are the ones that are not helpful to your body. So the ones that I've just talked about are the naturally occurring ones. And then I've just talked about low-fat foods, which are foods that are the natural fats that your body can utilize with the fat taken out. So they're not great. But there are certain fats that are not great as well. But again, these are ones that we've messed about with. These are the ones that have been processed. So things like vegetable oils and sunflower oils, yeah, these have gone through a chemical process to make them stable and usable at high heat temperatures. And these are the ones that your body is not going to do very well with. These are the ones that we definitely want to be avoiding as often as possible. Sorry, my eyes are itching. And these are the ones that they're not bad in terms of good and bad, but they're not great in terms of how your body responds to them, because the same thing happens. They're going to create an inflammatory effect if you eat a lot of them. Your body's pretty damn good at adapting and helping itself to get rid of stuff that it doesn't want. That's why we have a lymphatic system. That's why we have got red blood cells, white blood cells occurring together, so that when the blood's circulating, we can sweep up what's not helpful. That's why we've got a liver that gets rid of all of the crap. That's why we go to the loo, hopefully every single day, to eliminate all of the stuff that our body's not able to utilize. But we're not doing it any favors if we are eating a lot of takeaway food, if we are eating food that has got a lot of processed cheap fats in it. And those foods tend to be the ultra processed ones. What am I talking about? Ultra processed foods are foods that you couldn't make in your own house. So you've got processed foods, which are things like your sliced bread and your kind of cupcakes and stuff like that you'll get in a packet in the supermarket. But then you've got super processed foods, which can often be in ready meals and stuff that are full of ingredients that you can't even pronounce, never mind recognize. And if you can't recognize them, neither can your body, and it can't utilize them. So those are the products that are the ultra processed ones, when there's stuff in there that you couldn't get hold of in a conventional kitchen. You just wouldn't be able to get access to it. But your big food manufacturers can get access to this stuff. So that's what we mean by ultra processed. The things that have got like incredible colors and really weird consistencies. And these are the things that I'm talking about. So when you are shopping for foods, just remember, it's not about being perfect, but it's about making sure that you don't overload your body with too much of the stuff that is going to create inflammation and is going to create an imbalance in your gut microbiome, and is not going to help you in terms of fat loss because it's likely to cause inflammation. So that's the first one that I wanted to bust. Are fat containing foods higher in energy than, say, protein and carbohydrate foods? Yes, they are. But it makes the foods satisfying and it makes the foods taste good, so that we don't need as much to help us to feel that we've had enough. And that's the point. We need fat, folks, to function, particularly your brain, and particularly omega-3 fats. And for those people who are neurodivergent, then you definitely need omega-3s in perhaps bigger amounts than people who are not. Same applies if you do a lot of exercise or if you have a lot of medication that you're taking. So good fats, omega-3s, fats that come from natural sources, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, not many vegetables to be honest, and animals. So there you go. That's fats busted. Now, the other one that I wanted to bust, because I've kind of busted low-fat foods within that as well. But the other one that I wanted to bust, which crops up all of the time, is that if you want to lose weight, you need to cut carbs. No, you don't. If you want to lose weight, you want to increase your fibrous carbs a lot. Right? And what do I mean by fibrous carbs? Well, we kind of got two types of carbs. And when people talk carbs, and they just say carbs, they tend to be referring to other starchy ones, things like rice and pasta and potatoes and bread. That's what they mean. But actually, that's not really good, clear communication, because we've got fibrous carbs. And these are the ones that we need to be embracing and eating a lot of, because these are the ones that come from fruits and from vegetables and from pulses. And we need these guys, and from grains too. So things like whole grain rice, things like lentils and nuts and peas and beans are great sources of carbohydrate. We've also got some fats in there as well, in the nuts. And they're a good source of carbohydrate and protein. In fact, nuts tick all the boxes of everything. They're great sources of everything. Fruits and vegetables are carbohydrates, folks. And I can't say that enough times, because when people tell me that they don't eat any carbs, and I say, what, you don't eat any vegetables? Oh, yeah, I eat vegetables. Well, you're eating carbs, right? Fruits are carbs and vegetables are carbs. But we need them. Why? Well, look at them in terms of colors. We've got so many different colors of fruits and vegetables, because they don't just contain carbohydrates. They contain a lot of water, they contain fiber, and they also have a lot of vitamins and minerals and something called phytonutrients, little tiny amounts of other nutrients that your body requires to function well. So carbs are not bad, and they should not be avoided. Your gut loves fruits and vegetables, and it loves a diverse mix. So what we don't want to be doing is eating the same vegetables day in, day out, the same salad items, the same fruits. We need to be mixing it up. And that's why, if back in the day, when we only used to be able to get fruit and vegetables that were in season, we used to make sure that over the year, our gut microbiome got all of the diversity that it required to stay balanced and healthy. Now, that's a bit of a different story because you can get hold of strawberries at Christmas, and you can get hold of what used to be seasonal vegetables and fruits like rhubarb and asparagus all year round, when they used to only have seasons. But if you can ensure that you eat a good variety of colours and different colours throughout the week, not every day, that would be silly, but eating the rainbow is something that I highly recommend, because the more colours, the more diversity you can get, the different textures that you can get at different times of year, the more you are going to be able to help your body to have a good, diverse gut microbiome. And if your gut microbiome is diverse, you're going to break down your food better. It's going to help you when it comes to managing your weight, when it comes to managing inflammation, but crucially, when it comes to hormone production. And our hunger and our satisfied signals come from hormones. In fact, everything comes from hormones. But hormones are made in the gut. They're not made in the brain. When we're talking hormones, just let me clarify. Hormones are just chemical messengers. And we have hormones for everything. For your temperature regulation, for your hunger, for your satisfaction, for your sex hormones, obviously estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, everybody's heard of those, but things like your blood sugar balance, and there's hormones for everything. They are just messengers that tell systems and organs what to do and when. And it's really important that we get in the carbohydrates that can keep that gut microbiome diverse, and that does include grains in small amounts, not in massive amounts. And it does mean that we need to have carbohydrates. Your brain loves glucose. Carbohydrates are broken down into glucose. Your brain runs on glucose. It needs carbohydrates. So if you are suffering from brain fog or memory loss and you're blaming your age or menopause, look at your diet. Because if you are not getting in the good fats, and if you are trying to restrict carbohydrates, then chances are your energy's not great, your mood's not great, you're struggling to remember things, and quite frankly, you're probably not a joy to be around. So can we once and for all, when we're talking carbs, start to stipulate what we mean when we say carbohydrates? Are starchy carbohydrates bad? No, of course not. But we don't need a lot of them if you're not very active. Okay, so the more active that you are, the more starchy carbohydrates that you will require. The less active you are, the less you will require. Do we all need to be eating carbohydrates every single day, every single meal? Yes, but the fibrous ones are the ones that we want to focus on, the ones high in fiber, the ones with lots of vitamins and minerals, the ones that bulk up our plate and make it look like we've got a lot of food, because they are naturally very low in fats and calories and energy, but they provide a big bang for their buck in terms of nutrients. I hope that's been helpful, busting some of those myths, because if you are restricting fats and carbohydrates, either one or the other, or alternating between them, then chances are you are still going to be struggling with managing your weight, your blood glucose levels, and your mood. And it doesn't have to be hard. If you do want any advice on how you can help yourself to improve your own personal daily eating habits, then please do get in touch with me, or jump over onto my website, vickymidwood.com, and watch the Nourish Not Punish Masterclass that is on there for free, because it explains a little bit more about food and nutrients and what we should be aiming to eat, why it's helpful for our body and our brain, and the types of foods that we need to be avoiding and why. I hope you have found it helpful. And if you have, please subscribe, give me a like, maybe pass it on to somebody who you think may find this useful and helpful too, because the more we can spread the message about this stuff, the more we can hopefully get rid of these flipping untrue myths about fats and carbohydrates once and for all. You only have one life, as far as we know. You only have one body. Look after it, because it's looking after you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.